Global Conservation Corps presents the RHINO Man podcast. I'm John Jerko, your host, and one of the directors of RHINO Man the movie. This podcast series is a way for me to interview top conservationists on the topics of rhinos, the poaching crisis, the importance of rangers, and community engagement, all as a way to create awareness around these issues and to promote the coming release of our documentary film. In this episode, I'm talking with my good friend Orlat Ndlovu. Orlat is the head of Ranger Services at the Timbavati Private Nature Reserve, which borders the Kruger National Park in South Africa. He's been a dedicated ranger for over 14 years, and he was a close friend and colleague of the late Anton Mzimba. In this conversation, we talk about Orlat's early love of birds and how that passion for nature led to a career as a field ranger. We dive into the challenges he faced during ranger selection and training, the day-to-day work of a ranger in the Timbavati, and the many dangers of the job. We spend time unpacking the rhino poaching crisis and how it changed the nature of his work. We go deep into what makes a good ranger, the nature of corruption within the Ranger Corps and how his team works to eliminate it, and the importance of educating and inspiring the youth. We even have a heartfelt discussion about the loss of Anton Mzimba and the difficult task Orlat had in stepping up and taking leadership of his team during such a devastating time. Orlat is full of sage advice and a love for the work he does. I'm excited to share his in-depth conversation with you. So without further ado, here's Orlat Ndlovu. All right, Orlat, welcome to the RHINO Man podcast. It's an honor to finally have you on here.
No, thank you. Thanks a lot, John.
Yeah, I feel like, man, I don't know. It's probably been 5 years now since I first met you on my first trip to South Africa. And I feel like on that trip, I was kind of in a daze, just running around with the camera, shooting everything we could. And I'm sure I probably said a few words to you, but it's all that whole trip was kind of a blur. I don't know if you even remember that.
Yeah, I can't. It's been a long journey.
Yeah, a long journey. And I know Nick and some of the other team were there before I even showed up. And
yeah,
I think we really started to get to know each other during 2020 when I kind of got myself stuck there during the whole COVID pandemic.
Yes, exactly.
Which was interesting. But yeah, it's just been so great getting to know you and the rest of the team. And yeah, we had some fun days out there, even though we were in the midst of a worldwide lockdown.
It was so good to have you, John, around here. I mean, that on its own, it was meaningful to the rest of the team. I mean, you were like sort of an injection, because what we needed is to see someone from outside this environment that we're living in to come and join us, to come and show us that there is people, those who are looking after us, out there. And knowing you, it sort of like made us to be wide awake to say that, okay, hold on. It's not only us who are fighting this battle here, but there is people somewhere else who are looking after us. So yeah, it was a pleasure, to have you around during that time of COVID. I think COVID really worked to our advantage.
Yeah, for me, it was like the experience of a lifetime. I spent 9 months there and so many hours with you guys out in the field. And it's good to hear that I wasn't a burden and was more of a, I don't know, I guess confirmation that people are on the outside, because I feel like I tortured you guys quite a bit.
We were super excited having you here.
No, that's so great to hear. And yeah, what I think people won't know is that we basically shot a whole other film that's just sitting on a hard drive separate from RHINO Man that hopefully one day we'll be able to bring to life. There's a lot of backstory to everything that's happened that maybe will come out in some other Q&As or conversations, but kind of want to stay focused on your story, and maybe just to give people context that, maybe this is their first episode they're listening to and they're just starting to learn about rangers and what's going on. Maybe to start, you can just give a little bit of context of what's your current position and role at the Timbavati Private Nature Reserve, and maybe a little bit of just background on what is the TPNR and what's that world like if people come into it from the outside.
No, thanks a lot, but I'm Orlat Ndlovu. I think that's a very important one that I need to bring it up. So yeah, my name is Orlat Ndlovu, working at Timbavati Private Nature Reserve. Currently, as a head of Ranger Department, I'm the one who's managing the field ranger team on the ground, making sure that everything is in place and the team is running smoothly. Yeah. So I've been in Timbavati for the past 14 years and started working here as a casual, where we'll be dealing with erosion control and bush clearing. And from there, that's where I went and joined the selection process. They were looking for field rangers here. They wanted to add numbers since they didn't have much on that time. So I was part of the selection process that was taking place under the supervision of the late Anton Mzimba. He was the one who was doing the selection process. So in total, we were 23 when we started, but towards our last day, we finished, it was only the 6 of us.
Wow.
And out of the 6, they only needed 5. So I was very much fortunate to have been one of the 5 that they were looking for. I was selected and I was sent to the Wildlife College amongst the 4 so that we can go and do our basic field ranger training there by the college with Mr. Ruben de Kock. So we completed our 6 weeks course there doing our basic, and from there came back here. So since then, that's how my journey was up until today. So it's 14 years of experience being out in the bush. I won't say every day because there is a gap here, when I've got my off time because, sometimes you've got to have a time, to can refresh and all that. But yeah, it's quite a journey. 14 years, it's not a child's play. So Timbavati is situated in Woodspread area in Kruger National Park. Timbavati is just a private organization that is situated within the Kruger National Park. So we are in a big 5 area where we've got rhinos, we've got buffaloes, we've got elephants, we've got lions, we've got leopards, you can mention all the dangerous animals that we've got them here. And also we having those white lions, if you're hearing about white lions, we do have them here and they're not tamed. All those that I've mentioned, they are wild animals. And with that, on my journey of being a field ranger, it's more like we have sort of like connected with these animals, more like a bond. Now you're feeling like you are part of this wildlife. You're sort of like connected. If you're not here, maybe you are on your time off. You always wonder what's happening back there. And when you're here, you feel like you're home. But again, you've got to think about your family back home. So it's more like you're having 2 families here, where you care much about both. You don't want to be in one place and forgetting about the other one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And I think we'll definitely dive more into that connection. And I kind of want to go through in a little more detail of your journey to becoming a ranger. But I think it's important, some people get that Disney World perspective of wildlife, and it is very dangerous and you have to be respectful, but also being out there with you and the rest of the rangers, you get an understanding of that respect that you have and that deeper connection that you have and your ability to kind of at a certain point intuitively know, what situations to walk around or, back away from or give way to certain wildlife so that you can be out there in a more harmonious way and it's not like they're coming after you all the time. If you respect them, they respect you kind of thing. So
yes, exactly. Yeah. It's all about respect. And if you are able to interpret, because what happens here, it's animals do communicate with us. It's just that it doesn't communicate more like human to human. But there are some signs that you need to interpret. So in that sense, it means that they're trying to communicate with us. And we can communicate back with them only if you understand the signs that animals are giving to you to say that, okay, hold on. Now maybe you invading my comfort zone and all that. Okay, then you just say, okay, sorry, I didn't know about that. Then you go to go. So it's all about respect. If you respect them, then they will respect you back. It's not like animals are deadly, they're dangerous. Unless if you can ignore the signs that they're giving you, then you're gonna walk into trouble. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess every once in a while you get an angry animal, just like an angry human, which you just want to stay away from. They're in a bad mood,
exactly. They're more like us. They've got good days and they've got bad days. You just have to understand that, yeah, maybe today it was a bad day for it. So,
Yeah.
and once you can understand that, then you're good to go.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, for people, you kind of gave like a nice description there, but the Timbavati, yeah, it's such a beautiful place there. You probably know this, but there's quite a few rivers that pass through there, which most of the time that I've experienced, they were on the drier side, but this year you guys got a ton of rain, right? So there was actually quite a bit of water flowing.
Yeah, we did have enough rain that, we never expected it to have been rain like the way it rained. In a space of a day, we had like more than 100 mils,
Mm.
and of which it was a good thing. Unfortunately, our fences got damaged because of the big rivers that we're having here. But, that is one of those where we have to go back and fix those. But yeah, other than that, the roads were bad and we have to, sort of like grade and sort that out so that we can keep the reserve flowing. So it wasn't a bad thing having such rain since, we sometimes go dry, like animals are getting to be frustrated, more especially hippos when it's dry, they go into a muddy dam where there is no water and it's hot.
Mm.
If you are out on patrol, then they often attack you because they want to release that stress. So yeah, but if you have enough rain like we have, then that respect, it comes back to say that, okay, we are in a perfect place. You will never know what's going on into this animal's mind. Sometimes you will feel like maybe the reason why they're attacking you when they are on those drier seasons is because that they think you've got something to do with it. If there is no grass, trees are dry and there is no water, then if they can only see you there, then you're becoming a target to say that, yeah, but why are you here? You want me to move from here, whereas I'm struggling to can survive. And, it will often attack you. But if the vegetation is green, water everywhere, not even a single animal often attacks a human being, because they've got everything that they need. So yeah, we were happy having such a wonderful rainy season. And yeah, hopefully we will get to the next season of rain while we still have enough water on the ground.
Mm. Yeah, and I was there in March for a couple weeks, and that's definitely the greenest I've ever seen it. It was just so beautiful, and I think I lucked out. I came the week right after it was raining, for weeks and weeks, so I got beautiful sun and all the green, lush, and yeah, the wildlife seemed like it was all happy, and the rain's good for the wildlife, but just gives you guys a lot more work in terms of maintenance, like you were saying, fixing fences and roads and all that good stuff.
Yeah, all we're happy about is to see a healthy population of wild animals. I mean, that's what we want. The rest of roads and fences that we can also fix, that we can always go and fix. But if the condition of the animals, it shows that they're healthy, that's all we want. It makes our life easier. Unlike if you see them struggling, then you've got to question yourself, is it sick? Is it sicknesses that maybe, sort of like those anthrax on what, and then now you've got a lot of work to think of. But if everything is here, the vegetation is green, and you can see that the animals are happy and not very aggressive on you, then that's all we want. That's the reason why we're always out here to make sure that our wild animals, are safe and sound and nothing comes to harm them.
Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, since we're on the topic, I think it's, we'll go through a lot of the different roles that you have as rangers, but one of them, which I don't even think I realized, was like you're saying, monitoring the wildlife while you're out there doing patrols. You're also checking up on the wildlife. If you see, I think I was with you guys one time when there was a rhino with a bit of a limp, and you were, call in and report and make sure that someone comes out and checks it. And just in case there's a snare or some kind of injury, especially with wildlife that's more endangered, you want to do everything you can to make sure you don't lose one of those animals because they're so limited and so few. You can maybe speak a little more to it, but one of those roles is just monitoring the wildlife and making sure they're healthy and calling in help if need be in any situation.
Yes, that's one of our responsibilities when we're out there daily doing our patrol is to monitor these animals. If ever we see that one is not in good condition, then we assess. And if there is help that needs to be done, then we can always call the vet, to come in and rescue that animal, because what we don't want is to lose as much animals as we can. Yes, we understand nature takes its course, but there are some those who find that it's human interventions. You often find rhinos limping, and you will think maybe, it was a result of fighting, but you often find that it survived a gunshot. So that's where you need to call in the vet so that they can come and treat the animals, because rhinos are endangered now. So you don't want to lose that. So if you see a rhino not in a good condition, then you often assess, you check what the problem might be, then you call for help, and you don't just leave it like as it is and you feel like, okay, no, it's fine. It's gonna survive. It might not survive. If it was natural, then yes, it was gonna survive, because it can, heal itself. Nature sometimes does take its course, and we're happy with that. But what we don't want is our wildlife to be sort of like being in those conditions by human interventions, where you find that some they are limping because it has got snare. Obviously, you're not going to leave it and say that, okay, it will fight it and it will eventually get off the hook. No, you've got to try and help it. But if it was like, for instance, a bull that fought with a bull, yes, for animals like rhinos, we try and call the vet in so that you can try and deal with those wounds. But remember, a fight of rhinos, it's deadly, because they're fighting for territories and stuff. So you might be treating the outer part of the wound, but deep inside, there is bleeding that you're not going to treat. And eventually that animal will die because of that. But it's good that we have tried to save it rather than watching it die like helplessly. So we always try and give a hand, because that's why we're out there. We want to see wildlife, like as it has been since we knew it, and we want to leave it like as it is, unharmed. So that's one of the reasons why we're always out there doing our patrols, is to make sure that we leave our wildlife unharmed. We don't want to see one struggling because of human interventions and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we'll go into more of the roles that you guys play, but before we do that, let's kind of dive a little bit more into your past and go into some of the details of your journey to becoming a ranger. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about, where you were growing up, or like the communities, and just what that was like growing up as a kid, any experiences that kind of stand out. And I don't know if as a kid you had any drive to become a ranger or a conservationist or a soldier. I feel like those are a lot of the themes that come up for people that I talk to in the ranger world. But, what was that like growing up, and what dreams did you have, I guess, of the future?
Growing up, I grew up in these local villages where they were bordering nature reserves, Kruger National Park. So often, I will go out after school time, because I enjoyed bird calls and stuff. So I will go out where it's quiet, then start listening to bird calls, and I will try and ID them. And, if you can give yourself time to think of that, then I don't even know, because I didn't know by then that maybe I had a drive. I fell in love with this. But I started like seeing those color differences amongst the birds. Then I questioned myself, but how come such happened?
Hmm.
Who colored them? Who painted these birds this much? And, those bird calls, I'm like, wow, this is amazing. So in that sense, I started going out very often. After school, I will go out, for bird watch and all that. Then I will sometimes fight with guys of my age, because, they will go out hunt those birds. Then we're always fighting about that, to say that, yeah, but that was my bird. That's what I was saying. I liked that one. So then I started distancing myself from those kind of kids who will go out and hunt birds and all that. And my granny by that time, he was working at Timbavati Private Nature Reserve. During school holidays, I will visit him. So then I saw this gentleman, they're coming back from work carrying rifles and, going to locate on uniforms. And then I asked my granny, what are those gentlemen doing? Then that's when he said that those are field rangers. They're looking after our wildlife. Then I was like, hey, when I grow up, I want to be like one. I think that's where all this started. So I thought it's something that I was just making fun of. but I only realized it as I grew up because after I started working at a mine, but then, I was like, no, man, this is not where I belong. So I don't belong here. I wasn't happy there. So I was not earning enough, but mines can pay better than the conservation because conservation, it's not about money. So I worked there, but my mind wasn't there. So I had to resign and go back home. And luckily, I didn't stay much at home. Then I got a call from one of my beloved brother, the late Anton Mzimba, to say that, okay, can you come visit me here? Then I came here. And luckily, by that time, they were looking for people to deal with the erosion control, bush clearing, and fencing. That's when I started. That's how my journey began. As we're doing that, I will go out and start IDing all these trees and birds and animals and grasses, all those on my own, on my spare time. Wanted to know all of that. So not knowing that I'm getting connected to such, then at a later stage, while working on that, then they were looking for field rangers. So they were about to do a selection, a course. That's when I joined E. And
Yeah, before you go too much into that, I just want to linger a little bit on these early days. I mean, it's funny how you say the birds are kind of what brought you in. I think even with Anton, that was kind of what drew him in, were some of the bird calls, and learning the birds was one of the early parts of his experience too. But I feel like as a kid, you were already acting like a junior ranger out there, giving the guys a hard time who were out there hunting the birds and trying to protect them already.
without even knowing it, it was sort of like happening instinctively. If you are born a field ranger, then everything just happens instinctively without you knowing that you're doing what a ranger could be doing. So I think that's the first step. If you start falling in love with those at an early age, then that's what we call a field ranger. Whereas there are those that you find that they've grew up in suburbs or towns, and when situation is bad from wherever they are, then they feel like, oh, okay, what can I do now? Let me just go and try my luck on being a field ranger. That's a total different scenario.
Yeah.
For somebody who fell in love at an early age with wildlife, and somebody whom, because he's stranded, he's got nothing to do, then it's a total different two things here. So yes, if the late Anton Mzimba said the same, then it means that, like, as you have met, you have known him, that gentleman, he was a real field ranger.
Yeah, and even, I think he started out at the TPNR doing similar work, and I'm sure that's why he connected you, because he knew this was kind of a pathway, being out there working on the roads and the fences and getting to experience it. And then it's kind of a nice way for them to watch you too and be like, oh, does this guy have what it takes? Does he like it out here? And then when that opportunity to be a ranger pops up, you get a shot at it. So yeah, it's kind of interesting parallels between the two of you in that way. And I think, you just started talking about the selection, which I'd love to go into what your selection experience was like, because the only reference I really have is from, Ruben and Marianne de Kock running the selection at the Wildlife College. But what Ruben always would tell me is, a part of the selection is, of course, making sure you're fit enough to be out there and do this work, because it is very physical work, and that you're able to make tough decisions in high stress, scenarios, because like we were talking earlier, you have wildlife encounters, there's poachers, and we'll talk about that. So you need to be sure that the people that are selected are able to face those types of realities and make the right decisions. But I think something that kind of connects to what you're just talking about, people becoming rangers from different backgrounds, someone that has the passion and it's kind of just within them, versus someone that might just be like looking for an opportunity and this is just a job that they can get. I think what Ruben would always say is selection, you don't weed all of these people out, but a part of it is, you make it hard enough so that people realize, like, do I really want to do this? Is this something I'm passionate about? And that way, hopefully you get rid of some of the people that may not be that connected to it. Might be a little easier when, we get into the rhino poaching and how much, money and greed is there and temptation. you want to try to weed some of those people out so that they don't become corrupt. And you don't always get everyone out, but I think it does make sense that, you make it hard enough. Only the people that are really passionate are going to want to push through and find their limits and get to the other side. So I don't know if that connects with you, and maybe talk about that a little bit, but also go into your selection and what that experience was like and what kind of challenges you had to overcome.
Yes, the selection process. I heard a lot of people saying that is the hardest thing that you will ever go. But let me tell you, John, that selection process for somebody who is born to be a field ranger, it's nothing. It's like an easy walk. So it's hard. Yes, it's tough for somebody whom is not passionate, is not dedicated about it, and is not born a field ranger. But for somebody whom his mindset, his whole life is dedicated to be a field ranger, you don't often feel that. So when I did my selection, the last day of my selection, it was like my first day. I was still going there to start the selection process, even though it was the hardest for the rest, because like as I've said, we were 20, I think 23, somewhere there. And most of them on our first day, they were gone. But I couldn't feel it up until my last day. And even when we finished, I felt like I'm still going to my selection training. So that's how strong I was. It's not like body-wise, you need to be strong. Yes, body-wise, you can be strong, but mentally, that's the whole engine of all this. If your mindset is there to say that, okay, yes, I want to do this because this is what I love. This is the opportunity that I was waiting for. You often don't feel whatever that you guys are going to do on the training. Whatever they say that, okay, whenever they say that this is what you need to do now, we're looking for so much push-ups, pull-ups, and whatnot. You just flows with the system because your mindset is there. It's like, yes, this is what I wanted to do. You often don't feel the pressure that's there with selection process. But for someone who is there for wrong reasons, he is not going to last. He is not going to last. And it's very unfortunate and very sad to say it today that most of the rangers, those whom we believe were real rangers, they went out and sort of like gave that information to the wrong guys out there to say that no matter how hard it is, just hang in there, you will eventually make it. So hence we are in a situation where you often hear that rangers are involved into this rhino poaching. Well, we can call them rangers because they're wearing that skin of a ranger, but those are not rangers. Those are not rangers. Those need to be rectified. Those are poachers who saw the gap and came to use that gap of being called a ranger, but they were not rangers.
Yeah, it's almost like they're anti-rangers. I never thought of it that way. The crime syndicates or other poachers saying, "Hey, this is going to be really tough, but if you push through to the other side, we're going to pay you a lot of money to do all this corrupt things, giving us information, helping us." Yeah, it's almost like the flip side of that, which is really, really sad.
And that's the reason why today we're sitting with so much what we call rangers being arrested of being involved in rhino poaching, but those were not rangers. Those were poachers who came in to hang in there until they finish their training so that they can operate freely. Because, as soon as you finish with your selection process and you go through your basic training, then you're sort of like being given a license to say that, okay, now you can go and we think you are a ranger. Now we're giving you that license to say that, okay, you go and protect the wildlife. But instead, we're giving those guys, chance to can operate freely because they're there, a part of the system. Whatever you're doing, they're in there. So those are the ones, those that harm us the most, and they often get caught. And now they're sort of like tarnishing the rangers' name to say that the rangers are involved into this. But yes, they were not rangers, and they will never be rangers. Poachers will always be poachers. There have been poachers even before they could wear that uniform. So, but just because of the training, and they were told that you need to be as tough as you can, no matter how hard it is. Once you're done, then you're in. And those guys, they tend to be called rangers, but they're not.
Yeah.
Been poachers even from the start. So those are the ones, those that are giving us headaches every now and then. Those are the ones, those that are getting caught every now and then with being involved into this. And just because of that name that they've been called Rangers, then all of a sudden Rangers are corrupt. But yeah, it wasn't Rangers. Real Rangers aren't corrupt. Like the late Anton Mzimba, who was incorruptible. So we've got few of those that are incorruptible. But we do have Rangers, those that we call them Rangers, but yet they are not Rangers. They're in here for wrong reasons.
Yeah, and I'm sure that just, on top of all the other challenges that Rangers face, that's got to be one of the hardest when one of your teammates is against you. And especially when you're at that point where maybe you don't really have the proof, you can't give hard evidence, but something is up, and it just creates that doubt and makes it tougher for you to do your job, because you're like, can we send this person there? Because then they might give information, or, I can only imagine that challenge. And I kind of want to talk more about the corruption stuff, but since we're still in the selection side, before we jump all the way to that, can you give us a little bit of, especially for people that don't know what a selection is, can you talk about some of the challenges, the physical challenges, any of the mental challenges? I've seen Ruben's selection, and I'm sure Anton's is probably similar because he trained with those guys and worked with them a lot. But I'd love to hear, what types of things did you have to go through on that selection?
The selection that the late Anton Mzimba ran for our team, it's exactly the same as one Mr. Ruben Ndlovu do, because these two, they worked together for so long. So he didn't change anything from what Mr. Ruben Ndlovu did with his teams. He did exactly the same, where the hardest part was when you came out from early morning, you ran 8 kilometers, came back, did the push-ups, and you go out with your bag full of sand. With us, it was 30 kgs. Unlike now, it has been reduced to 20 kgs somewhere there, but with us, it was 30. And 30 and above, but not below 30. If it's 35, then so be it. But it shouldn't be less than 30. So you're coming back from that walk and you tired, you were sweating all day long. You didn't even take off your bag, no matter how long the distance was. And you can only be given 15 seconds to take a shower. 15 seconds. You need to have completed your showering and you're out. And you go to bed since you're tired. But every 2 hours, they will wake you up, blow a whistle, and you've got to make sure that you're up on your back straight into the parade ground. So every 2 hours, imagine you're tired. When you go to bed, you're flat. But that whistle, as soon as they blow that whistle, you've got to be up. So, that is one of the challenging one. But if you have that understanding that this is sort of like getting me ready to do my job nicely, then you often don't feel that. You don't see any pressure on that, because everything that they do on that selection process, it has got the reason behind it. That's going to save your life out there. You don't rate not even a single activity that they will tell you they're 0 out of 10. Everything is well organized. It's 10 out of 10. From the quick showering, the whistle blow, the bag, and the push-ups, the running, everything. It's perfectly matched. That's what saved me even today, talking to you for the past 14 years of being out in the bush. It made me to be who I am today. So it is tough, yes, but it's sort of like getting you geared up to go and survive out there.
Yeah, and I mean, even watching Ruben's selection, and people will be able to see that in the film too. When he's making people do these different physical tasks, he's always explaining some of the reasoning behind it, so that the students are learning as they're doing it, and it's not just pointless work. It's like, oh, okay, I need to have strong arms and a strong core so that I can hold my rifle and hold my bag, and we might have to be on patrol for long hours, or something might happen in the middle of the night and you're going to have to get up even if you're tired to go check on it. So there's a reason behind everything, and it's there's the physical mental challenge just on the pure selection, like see if you've got what it takes, but then it's also like, here's how it applies to the real life situation, and you're already learning how to be a ranger in selection before you even get to the training. I think that's kind of what your experience is as well.
Yes. And with all that, some you don't even to be told that's the reason why we're doing this is because you will come across this out there. You yourself can also see that, okay, the reason why they're giving us this sort of training is they're gearing up that in case this happens, then we know what to do. So if you hear someone starting to complain when you're doing some sort of training, then you just know that that particular person is at the wrong place at the wrong time. That's not the one that you're looking for. If you see someone starting to pull behind, dragging the team and start confusing the team, then you know that that is not the kind of person you need in your team. Because remember, we need the teamwork. We work as one. So if one starts pulling aside, then obviously the whole team will start to get confused. And that's not what we want. We want to pull in the same direction. So in those kind of training, that's where you see who can be in your best team, because that's what you're looking for. You're looking for a strong team. So who is going to come and join your team so that it can be strong going forward? Not one who is going to start dragging them back to say that, okay, but guys, why are we doing it this way? No, we should be doing it this way. And if you start hearing complaints from the team, then you just know that you've got the wrong guys on the ground.
Yeah, and you want to be able to trust those people when something really happens that could be dangerous to everyone's life, that they're going to be there and do their job and be a part of the team and can pull their weight. So super important. So what happens when, like you said in your selection, there were 6 people that made it through, I think, the physical side of it, but what else do they do to be able to say, okay, who are the 5 that we're going to choose out of these 6? I think, from what I know, there's the interview panel, and I don't know if they always do it, but the integrity test, I don't know if that's how they ended up pulling the last few people, deciding who made it through your selection, or if you can talk to that a little bit.
Oh, okay. After you have finished your selection process, it doesn't mean that you have already passed. There is an interview process that you need to go through where the panel will sit down and discuss. Because, you might be physically tough. Physically, it can take you through the selection process. But mentally, they check almost everything. Yes, you were strong, you were tough physically, but mentally, when it comes to teamwork, were you participating? Were you acting? How was it? Were you cooperating and all that? So there is a lot of stuff that they sort of like check on one when doing selection process. So there is a lot. You might have gone from the first day up until to the last, but you find that your behavior through the course, it will fail you come end of the day. Hence, I said that, yes, physically, you might be physically fit, but mentally, because that's what they're going to check. Are you active enough to can respond, whenever you in a situation where you need to respond as quickly as you can? Or you're that person whom you're going to rely on somebody else to tell you that, okay, now we need to do this. Because remember, when you're out there, you need to be able to can stand on your own. That's when you can be able to save your life and save your colleague's life. But if you can rely on someone else, then it means whoever that you're going to be with when it comes to time to patrol, you're not going to save his life. And obviously, if you fail to save your colleague's life, you're not going to save your life. So there is a lot that they check during your time of selection. Your response, the respect that you have with your colleagues in there, and the respect that you have to your corporals and staff, because that's basically where you see that this guy, no, he's going somewhere else. There is a leadership in him. He's the right guy that we need on the ground. Quick to act, pick up stuff on the ground, your eyes, your ears, you're active in that particular instance, then that's what they want to see. Yes, that's the right guy. He's active, he's super active. You can see that he's not going out there to cause casualties and stuff, because that's not what we want. So he's super active. He can survive out there no matter what.
Yeah, and I remember from the one selection that I saw, there was actually a guy that we were kind of rooting for because he just seemed, he's talked a lot of passion, and I think for him, he didn't realize that he had it in him to do the physical side. But in the end, sadly, or not so sadly, depending on how you look at it, I guess, the long term, it was for the better, but didn't seem, everyone in the panel decided that he didn't really have the drive to make decisions on the fly for himself, and he was relying on too many people. And I think I remember hearing one of the trainers saying that, if I was in a situation where an elephant was charging me and I had to rely on him to save me, I'm not sure that I would feel comfortable with that. And so, like you're saying, it kind of comes down to more things than just, do you have the strength to get through? You also need to be able to make decisions quickly, and like you said, be, I don't know what the right words are, a self-starter, or you're making decisions on your own, not having to have someone tell you have to do this. You're already actively thinking ahead of what needs to be done or how I can solve this situation on your own, which is a really, really powerful trait to have in that situation.
Yes, because one thing that you need to understand, John, is that being a field ranger, you need no supervisor. You are a supervisor on your own. So when you're getting deployed, imagine if you're having one corporal who is having like 6, 7 teams. He's not going to be in every team. So you've got to be a leader yourself so that you can be able to work freely out there. As long as you're trustworthy, you know what you're there for, then you don't have to be always, someone behind your back checking what you're doing. No, you know what you're doing. So that's what we want. We want someone who is super active, someone who can respond, and someone who understands what is out there for. So someone who understands the reason why they've been deployed in tools, that it's not only for himself to be safe, but his colleague as well. So all that, it sort of like come together to can tell you that, okay, this is the right guy. So out of the 6 that we were, the one that whom he didn't make it, he was smoking the green stuff. So, which is not a bad thing, but
not on selection.
Yes. So imagine once you start doing that, they know for sure that, okay, no, this is the wrong guy. There is no time to smoke green stuff out there. By the time you're sitting down and, sort of like getting ready with green stuff, something is happening somewhere else. And yeah, I'm not sure if that's the reason why, but, some that green stuff, it doesn't sit well with them.
Yeah.
It make you to be slow on response in whatever you do. And as we saw, the guy was always fighting to be on a stretcher because he was he was that kind of guy who he wasn't strong enough to can lift the rest, but he always wanted to be on a stretcher all the time. So yeah, some of the issues that they've picked up with him, I think it's one of those that maybe the green stuff, it's sort of like taken much of him. He's no longer that strong enough to can cope out there.
Yeah. And for people that don't know, when you're talking about the stretcher, I'm imagining that you're talking about the Kazovac, which is one of the final challenges when it's teams of 5, and you have to carry the stretcher with someone on it. And, you usually rotate who's on the stretcher so that you give people a break. But it sounds like this guy wanted to just lie down the whole time. Huh?
Yes, he always wanted to lie down on the stretcher. So when he jumps out of the stretcher, since it was 4, we were 4, those that we were carrying the stretcher, and 1 will be on the stretcher. So the other one, he will walk. We often relaxed 1 so that if 1 gets tired, he will then go and we sort of like exchange. But instead, this one, he wanted to be on a stretcher. And if not on a stretcher, he's walking on a side, then he will come back just like that, either on a stretcher or walking. Then I think they realized that, no, man, this guy is not pulling his weight off.
Yeah. You guys probably wouldn't have wanted him on your team anyways. You're like,
nah, he was going to be a burden. Yeah.
And you also don't want to start a fire smoking in the bush either. That's a bad thing. So.
Yeah, exactly. Because when you start doing that, you sort of like giving your presence away to whoever to say that, okay,
that too.
Yeah, that's green stuff. It tells you that there is a human being somewhere there, because animals don't take that green stuff. No.
Oh, man, that's a good example. So after selection, you don't have to go through every detail because there's a lot you learn in the training, but maybe give people a little overview of what you learned in the training. If there was anything, it sounds like for you were probably loving it and just like soaking up all of that knowledge. But what was the training like at the Wildlife College, that 6-week course that you were on?
Yes, like as I said, my training after the selection, it was like easy as eating a pie. Because remember, I said while I was busy with this bush clearing and erosion control, I sort of like went and did a self-study where I studied the trees, the grass, the birds, and the animals and their behavior as well. So that's what you basically go in there for. You're getting taught about animal behavior and what do they feed, and you get to be taught how to track a human being, and if you have arrested a crime scene, if you've arrested a poacher, how to secure a crime scene and how to gather as much evidence as you can, and sort of like questions what to ask. They give you sort of a direction of this is what you need to do, and when you're out there on patrol, what you basically need to do. So on selection, they often don't teach you that. On selection, they're doing what they call a battery test. They're just testing your physical fitness and your mental fitness. Then your basic, that's where they more into your mental fitness to say that, okay, now we're giving you a foundation here. This is what you're going to be doing. At least this is where you need to start. If you know this, because that's why they call it basic. And the rest, you're just going to get it as time goes by when you're out there. Then you're doing it live. Because remember, when you're doing basics, you at the training where most of the stuff you get it from the books. You just getting taught that, okay, this is how we do it, and you might go and do practicals, but it's going to be like, it's practicals. So they're just giving you an overview of what's going to happen out there, sort of like laying a foundation. So from there, at least if you go back, you've got that foundation that, okay, we have started here. This is what they said we should do. And in doing that, you're getting to know much as time progresses while you're doing your daily patrols. Because remember, from the basic, you're becoming a real ranger now. Some of the stuff that you might have learned from your basic, it might not apply when you're out there, because now you are in a real situation, in a real fight. But some of the stuff that you have learned, there might be the stuff that you use in order to upgrade to wherever you want to be. So whatever that you have learned on your basic, you don't take it for granted. You just upgrade from that, because that is a foundation that they're laying for you when doing basic. So you don't take everything for granted in there. Whatever they're going to teach you at your basic, it's going to work as time goes by when you're out, and it's going to save your life when you're out there. You just have to apply it. And as you dare, then you start to upgrade yourself as you experience some situations. Then you realize that, okay, this needs to be handled this way.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that was one of the interesting things that I learned watching when I was there in 2020. I watched a whole 6-week course, and a lot of that training that Ruben and Marion and Anton all developed is focused on the conservation side too. So, there's the law enforcement aspect, which you're out there protecting the wildlife and have to defend it. And if people are doing things wrong, you have to approach them, apprehend them, tell them what they're doing wrong. But then there's the conservation side, not only so that you know how to be out there, but you also get to learn, here's the things we're protecting and why we're protecting and how the species interact in different trees and grasses and things like that. So I think that's such an awesome foundation for rangers, because it really connects them to their work and the why of their work. And they're not just, I think there's other organizations that some of the rangers they produce are more like security guards that don't really have that connection to the wildlife. But through this type of training, you're really connected to that. And especially for people that are passionate about being out there, I mean, that's really the heart of what being a ranger is. It's like, unfortunately, you have to do the law enforcement side, especially when things like the rhino poaching crisis happen. But, the heart of being a ranger is really being a part of that space. And I think we'll get into the role of ranger soon, being able to use that knowledge to educate people. And like, we were talking before this call, take people out. It's not as usual as going out with a guide, a regular field guide, but to be able to go out with a ranger is a really, really special experience.
Yeah, it is. It is such an experience. there is a difference between a field guide and a ranger, if I may put it that way. So where there is heat, that's where you will find a field ranger. And people often don't see it that way. The rangers are going where nobody will go. That's where you want to have a ranger there, because that's where the poachers, will go and operate. So where there is a gunshot, that's where you will find a ranger responding to that particular instance. And I think it's all because of the training that you get on your selection and you get on your basic training that equips you to say that if gunshot goes off, then that's where you want to be, because you don't want to hear that. Wildlife doesn't carry rifles. So obviously, if you hear that, then you know that there is someone doing illegal activities within your area. And you've got to go as quickly as you can to try and investigate what's going on. And I think all that's where what you've learned on your selection process comes in. The speed, the response. Now it's a whistle that they're blowing. That gunshot that you're hearing, it's a whistle that they're blowing. As quickly as you can, you need to be ready and responding to that situation. So everything comes into play when you're out there. Everything that you have done on your selection, everything that you have learned on your basic, when you're out there, then you sort of like experience it. You sort of like live it, because now you are in a real situation. So yes, there is a bit of difference between the rangers and the field guide. The field guide will tell you about the animal behavior and all that, but with the rangers, they have gone even beyond that.
Mm. Yeah, and I mean, unless you're very fortunate and get one of those special experiences where you get to be taken out and guided by the rangers on the ground, like you were doing this morning. Most of the time, the rangers, if you're out driving around on a game viewer, you never see them. You might drive right past them and they're camouflaged, sitting in the bush, watching you go by, but you never see them. And that's why I think, especially when this project for RHINO Man started out, and Matt was the one that really started this and had this vision. But I think there weren't very many stories of rangers being told, and they're kind of the unsung heroes that are in the shadows, watching and protecting and making sure everything's running properly. And I think that's a big part of why we wanted to do this, was to highlight and say, hey, there's these men and women that are doing this really difficult work, dangerous work, to protect the wildlife and these natural spaces that you're getting to enjoy, and you're driving around, on your game viewers, staying at these beautiful lodges. But behind the scenes, there's a lot of stuff happening, and we want people to be able to see that and appreciate that. And that's a big part of this. So maybe we can go into some more of the roles that a ranger play. We can talk a little bit more about law enforcement. Maybe we'll go into that more with the rhino poaching crisis and talk about that. But what else do rangers have to do out there? Like, what's your daily job consist of? If you could go through some of the highlights of some of the different things and tasks and ways you interact with people.
Okay. The responsibilities of a field ranger, or what the field ranger does on a daily basis, it consists of a lot of stuff. So we not only out there, looking for poachers. That's the last thing that we can think of. But one of the best that we out there for is to make sure that our environment is safe and not harmed. Got to make sure that our conditions of our animals that we taking care of, they're still in good condition. If there is one, like as I've said, that seem to be struggling, and you happen to find that there is human intervention in it, then we've got to make sure that we try and assist as much as we can. We know illegal activities taking part within the reserve. That is one of the things that we don't want as field rangers. We call it poaching, either meat poaching or rhino poaching or money driven, but we don't want poaching to take place. So illegal activities, we're looking for those. Water availability, the camps itself, the surrounding the lodges. Because remember, the staff, those that are working at the lodges and the camps, sometimes, they get tempted seeing those animals roaming around. Then they tend to think of getting some meat indoors, and they start putting snares. So, but again, the most important one is the educational side of things, where we as rangers have to educate the communities, the local communities, and whoever is working within the reserve about the importance of taking care of the wildlife, because nature doesn't need us, but we need it, to survive. So people need to understand that by harming this wildlife, these natural resources, we're also harming ourselves as well. So that's where the educational part comes in. We're not only there for applying law enforcement or being there as law enforcers, but we also need to educate people. Only those that they don't get to understand when we make them to understand the importance of wildlife, then those are the ones that we like, okay, no, we've tried. These ones, it seems like they are at the wrong place, at the wrong time. But we often want to educate people so that they can get to understand the importance of natural resources utilization and why we safeguarding them. It's because we want to be there for them so that they can be there for us. It's a win-win situation. Otherwise, if we misuse them, then obviously we'll be killing ourselves. So overall, it's one of the things that we want people to get to understand, that we're not here fighting them, but we're here by protecting those wild animals, we're protecting them as well. Because if there is nothing left, then obviously we're not going to survive. We're waking, most of the people are waking because they're still there. But if they were no longer there, nobody will be waking by now. And by not waking, it means that there is no income. And if you don't have money, then how are you going to survive? So, yeah, we're getting people to understand that this is for their best interest, to take care of it.
Yeah, I think that's one of my favorite roles that you guys play, is that connection to your local communities, but just even anyone that you come across within the reserve, that you guys are such great advocates for the wildlife and that connection. And like you're saying, if a lot of these communities, whether everyone realizes it or not, are relying on the jobs that are being produced there, the potential resources. I mean, there are legal ways that meat is removed and being utilized as well in a proper way for communities. And I think, there is this change where people are realizing that, yes, the local communities need to be benefiting from these places. Otherwise, why do they have a reason to protect it or care about it? And I think those changes have been happening, and the rangers are such a great communicator between the reserves and the communities to say, hey, like this is how we can work together and we can all benefit. And it's always great to see rangers, especially with kids. I feel like kids are like mesmerized when they see the rangers, and the rangers are telling them, about the wildlife and why it matters. And the youth are always so excited to get to experience that.
Yeah, being a ranger, it's not a difficult job to take, but you've got to have someone who encourages you, who motivates you, who becomes your role model, so that at an early age, when you grow up, you will always want to be like one. Back then, we didn't have much influence from the rangers because, from the educational side of things, they were not there. Hence, you didn't have much of what you can call field rangers. It was those old people. The only thing that they were good at is to go out and do their patrols and arrest poachers, and that's it. But now, recently, since our generation, we sort of like going out and educate these kids. And as soon as they see us, then they've got this belief that, yes, one day I want to be like that guy. Yes, one day I want to be like him. That drive, when you get them at an early age, their mindset, it's there. It's no longer going to change. And if you keep on visiting them and trying to get them to understand the importance of these resources and why are we preserving them and all that, then you're sort of like securing those for the future to be your future rangers. So you need to interact as well with the young kids so that you can have future rangers indoors. It's not a difficult work to do. You just have to interact with them. And it's good that most of the rangers are coming from the local communities. So that's where we grew up. When we go back, those kids, they feel like they've got someone to rely on. They've got someone to look up to. And you're sort of like becoming a mentor to them. You're sort of like becoming an example to them to say that, okay, I want to be like so and so when I grow up. And, in getting those, they could help you at a long run, to fight against whatever activities that are going to be taking place, not only on the reserve, even on the outside. Because come to think of people collecting firewoods, I know we need firewoods, for survival, but the effects of having taken all the firewoods out, the no more trees and all that. So the consequences of that, if you can get people to understand that, if you can get the kids to understand that at an early age, then they will go back and teach mom and dad, okay, this is not how we do it. This is how we do it. And they try as well to sort of like send that message out. Hopefully it will reach to the right ears and we'll get back to where we want to be, because we need these resources, to live freely.
Yeah. And I feel like you just said, the youth are always the best way to get to the adults, because it's sometimes hard to change their minds, but kids have that power. It's like, no, mom, dad, we should do it this way. And then eventually they're like, all right, we'll try it. And, so it's such a good way to go about it. Yeah. It's just so amazing that side of the work. And as we talked about Anton too, he was a big part of inspiring what GCC, Global Conservation Corps, is doing in terms of our Future Rangers program and interacting with the youth and bringing them out for experiences on the reserves, and just realizing that we can have so much impact by giving that experience to kids and showing them nature and why it matters, and connecting them with rangers like you too, to have those mentors and guides. So it's really important and really special. Not to go down a darker route, but I feel like, with this film, a big part of what we're highlighting is, rangers kind of in this situation of the rhino poaching crisis, which has brought a lot of additional dangers to being a ranger on top of just the normal challenges of being out there in the bush for long periods of time. But I wonder if you can tell us your experience of this rhino poaching crisis and how it first kind of hit you, because you say about 14 years now you've been a ranger, and I think that's about the time when this poaching crisis really started to take off, was probably early on in your days as a ranger. So maybe talk through what that was like. I don't know if you heard about it coming, that these problems were coming with the poaching, and how that developed over the years, especially at the height of the poaching crisis, and what that was like for you guys as rangers out there in Timbavati.
When we joined the field ranger group of Timbavati, we didn't even know about rhino poaching, yet it was there. So the only poaching that we knew that we geared up to fight, it was meat poaching, where the local communities will come put snares or even hunt with dogs at night. Those are the ones who we're chasing after. But few years after we've joined the team, and that's where we started experiencing, incursions that we started to struggle to understand what's going on, because we were not into rhino poaching type of incursions by that time. We were always on meat poaching, where it was dogs and they coming to put snares. But then we picked up some tracks, unusual tracks, and now we're checking the movement. You're not finding any snares. There is not dogs and whatever. Then we were questioning ourselves, okay, what's going on now here? Then we sort of like realized when we heard from our neighboring reserves that, okay, there was poachers, okay, there was a rhino poach, and we're like, oh, those tracks were of rhino poachers. Then, we started to change our tactics, the way of operating, because remember, if you want to catch a poacher, you need to act like one. So hence we always got those tracks that we always questioned ourselves that, okay, what's going on here? Then we sort of like changed everything, because we wanted to see these guys, wanted to catch them, since we were catching those meat poachers with dogs and those who were coming to put snares. And there was a time where, the guys came in, it was windy, it was thundering as if it's gonna rain heavily. Then when we woke up early in the morning the next day, there was a rhino carcass. Then that hit, I will say, all of us very, very hard, because it was our first experience, to can see a carcass lying down, being hacked like that very, very badly. Then that's when we realized that, okay, rhino poaching, it's real. So we took it very hard that we all wanted to get to the bottom of it, try and find whoever might have done that, and of which we couldn't rest. At some point, we were waking 17 hours a day to try and make sure that we find exactly what time are these guys operating, what time are they coming in, what time are they leaving the reserve. So for a period of 3 months, we had to work 17 hours a day. It was tough, but just because we knew what we wanted, we didn't feel that up until we've arrested that group that was troubling us. Then it went quiet. Then we realized that, okay, this is the time that they operate. Just because we had that scale of what time they operate, then we got back to our normal timing. We were just changing shifts here and there, unlike working 17 hours, because we already studied how they operate. But the reason why we pushed, because we wanted to make sure that we get, since they had our schedule, so we wanted to get their schedule as well so that we can see what time are they operating and what time should we shift to match their timing. So yes, we got hit here and there, but because Timbavati, it's a big reserve and it's in an open system, we're tied on our fence line, but the guys will be coming from somewhere else, from our neighboring reserves, and comes and hit us from where we didn't think they will hit us. But then as we shift gears, then because they still relax, not knowing that we're there, we're arresting them. So sometimes you will find that one group, they will be lucky, come the first time, then they will maybe hit us. But when they come back for the second time, we were making arrests like continuously. Then it went quiet. And even now we've got a period of so much that we haven't lost a rhino. It's because we have tightened up our security. We have changed our strategies, and we've blocked where we thought these guys might be coming from. So we have put much effort on those areas, and now it's gone, well, not quiet, but for a couple of weeks or months now, it's been quiet. No incursions, no rhino loss, nothing. So I think the team doing exceptionally well in making sure that we also starve these guys from getting information, because what happens is that these guys, the poachers themselves, they need information to can come and operate in your area. So if you can starve them from giving out information, then they're not going to come and play in your reserve. They don't know where the rangers are and at what time they operate and all that. So
yeah, it's just too dangerous for them at that point, right? If they don't know the information.
Yeah, it's very dangerous, and that's what we want. We have sort of like changed everything. What they knew, it's no longer what we're doing. We have completely changed everything. And if you starve them that information, then you're most likely to have a week or a month or a year of a break, because they're still trying to study, trying to get one or two to help with information. And if they're not winning on that, then obviously, you're going to be safe for a long run.
Yeah, it's such a kind of a back and forth. You're always trying to think ahead to what they could be up to and trying to cut them off before they get there. And like you're saying, information. I mean, it's not just, we were talking about bad rangers from earlier on, which is definitely a source, but also I'm sure just other people that are working in the reserve at lodges or different places could always be people that are, giving information about sightings of rhinos or watching the rangers and things like that. So it's got to be a lot of mind games and kind of tough to keep up with and think through that.
Yeah, it is. It is because, some of whoever providing information, they're providing information without knowing that they've given valuable information to the poachers. And that's one of the biggest challenges that we're facing. So people doesn't understand how poachers operate. They will sometimes get you, maybe buy you a couple of drinks, and they start talking about your workplace. And that's where the problems comes in, because you often say much that you can't even remember the next day that this is what you've said. And in doing that, you have already provided information that they needed. So some of the people that are working within the reserves, they give information without knowing that that information is going to hurt us come the next day.
Yeah, it just seems like some friendly guy at the bar is buying you some drinks and having a conversation, but little do they know he's prying information out of you that he could use to poach these rhinos.
That's how they operate. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about, especially when it comes to rangers, I feel like there definitely are some tactics that these poachers do. Sometimes it starts out, like you're saying, with just some drinks. I've also heard that oftentimes they'll try and pry into their financial situation and say there's a ranger or someone working on the reserve that has money issues, and they'll be like, oh, we could pay that off for you. And then next thing you know, you owe them something. And there's kind of these devious ways that a lot of them have of slowly reeling you in to where all of a sudden you're stuck and now they owe you something. And if you don't do what they want, they're going to threaten your family or your life and things like that. So I don't know if you can talk a little bit to how dangerous that could be from the corruption standpoint and how they bring some people in.
These syndicates often take advantage of people, those who their background are not as good as they should be, financially. Those are the ones, those that they're gonna recruit. If they come into your yard and you're struggling to buy food for your family, then they will come buy food for yourself. And they say that, okay, we can provide you with so much, but what you need to do so that you can be able to sustain or provide for your family, this is what you need to do. And that's how they recruit people from outside. Whereas with the rangers, like as I've said, we've got those that we believe they are rangers, but they're just wearing that skin, they're just wearing that uniform of being a rangers, whereas they're not. They're money driven to be in there. It's not like they were dedicated, they were passionate about being a ranger, but they were money driven. And those are the targets, those that they want. They will often go to that one and say that, okay, since we know that you are a field ranger and you're getting so much, but this is what we're going to give you. And what we want you to do, the only thing is a phone call. And a phone call away, this is your money. As long as you give us this information and all that, and you don't call us, we will call you. So you're losing nothing at the end of the day, but we're giving you this by giving us that information. That's all we want. This money, it's all yours. And once you get tempted on that because you were struggling financially, maybe you say like, okay, maybe I can try and buy some shoe stuff that I needed. Then after that, I'm done. I'm no longer. Once you're in it, there is no way out. It's only why we're in. Once you start providing information for them, you're not going to stop. They're going to use you. They're going to blackmail you and they're going to come after you. So it's good that a ranger has to always be alert of such. And this goes back to what you learn from your basic and your selection process, so that you don't get tempted so easily. Because once you're in it, then there is no way out. The guys are going to keep on needing information from you. Otherwise, they will blackmail you. Otherwise, they will threaten you with your family. They will threaten you with your life because they know where you live. And if something happens to them, then it's always going to be you. So it's one of the challenging one. Hence, I said that when you're going through that selection process, there is a lot that needs to be checked before they could say that, okay, this is what we can call a ranger. Because of such, and if you can make a mistake, like mistakes have been made, because by far there is plenty of rangers, those who have been caught, those who were involved into this rhino poaching. So some got tempted so easily, but some is because they were not rangers, they were poachers. They came in here by purpose to hunt. And those are the ones, those that are putting their colleagues' life at risk, because they go out there and say that so and so is the one who is stubborn, he's a problem there. If we can get him out of the system, then we're done. We're good to go. Because now it seems like we're going to have a challenge with him. So that's where the threats, that's where the problem comes in. That's where you will start receiving threats because you're very strict. You're doing what you love and you're on a straight line. You don't divert. You don't get tempted so easily. Then they often come after you because you're not buying into a story. You don't want to join their team and stuff. So your life and your family's life gonna be at risk by doing that. They're gonna come after you because they know for sure that since they've tried and they've failed, obviously you're gonna expose them. So rather they eliminate you out of the system before you could say much about them.
Yeah, and we could talk some about that with recent incident with Anton as well. But before we do, just and of course, no specifics are needed. But I know these are tough situations to deal with. And what do you guys do to try and, I guess, on one side, do you do anything to encourage your team? Like, if you're approached, this is how you should come to us so we can help. And then on the other side, what are you doing to help weed out the bad apples that may have gotten into your team and are kind of threatening from the inside? What do you do to try and get them out in a proper manner? So, yeah, those two questions. What do you do to encourage your team to report when people are approaching them and things like that, or to keep away from corruption? And what do you do when you do get a bad apple inside?
Okay. What I do to keep my team motivated and not get into this dirty work is that I always advise them that look, when you came from home, when you came from wherever you came alone. You had your bag on your own. Nobody helped you to carry that bag. So now you're here, you're working, you're getting paid for doing your job, and you go and provide for your family. Don't allow someone else from somewhere else, to sort of like ruin what you have worked for. Remember, when you went for your selection, you were on your own. So now people will try and approach you to say that, okay, we need your help. But as soon as you have lost your job, those guys have got nothing to do with you. So you will be useless to them because you will no longer going to be providing information to them. So you've got to think about that if you want to get involved into this, if such happens to you, then how are you going to feed your family? Because the only thing that they need, it's information while you're still here. But as soon as you've been kicked out of here, then as soon as you've lost your job, then they've got no use for you. So the money that they've promised you, the money that they said they're going to give it to you, you're no longer going to get that. And you're going back to struggle as much as you were before you even got employed.
And they're not gonna save you either if you get caught and put in jail or prison.
No, you're useless. Then they're moving forward. They're sort of like looking for someone else to provide information. They're done with you. The deal is it's over. So you've got to be extra careful with that. And with regards to having a rotten apples, for those that they don't listen, because we often have that. What we do here at Timbavati Private Nature Reserve, we have implemented a polygraph test, a lie detector policy, where if one has joined or got tempted and now he's providing information or is involved into this rhino poaching, then what we do is we do a random test, maybe 3 times, depending on financial situations, but often it's 3 times a year, where we scan not only the rangers, but the whole reserve, the whole staff, whoever works in here, to check if they're not involved into such activities. If you happen to fail the first one, then we will sit down with you and sort of like have interview with you, ask you a couple of questions. Why did you fail? Is there something that you're not telling us? And if you're saying that no, there is nothing, then we give you a second chance. If you fail the second one, then we go the route of retrenching you, since you are a threat to this environment. So what we do, the warden will issue a letter to say that he's banning you from accessing the reserve. And by banning you from accessing the reserve, it means that how are you going to come to work? You're not going to come to work. And if you're not working, then it means you're not getting paid. So we come to a settlement agreement where we just retrenches you. You go home, we give you your package, and that's it. And that's how you lose your job. And chances of getting employed somewhere else in the conservation industry, it's very, very slim once you have failed a polygraph based on the questions that they will ask you of rhino related. If they are rhino related, then you're most likely not going to get a job anywhere else because you are a threat to the environment. So those are the two things that we often do to make sure that our guys stays clean, stays far away from these corrupt syndicates, those who are trying to gain or trying to win their mind to say that, okay, help us with information and this is what we're going to do.
From your perspective, how successful is the polygraph test in terms of getting people out? I mean, do you notice when you do that and you have to retrench someone, is there an effect where, there's less poaching? Or, I mean, are there ways that you can see that, yeah, this seems to really be the most effective way that we can employ? Because I think some people, are like, well, polygraph tests, are they 100% true or do they work? But, just from your experience all these years, when you have that happen and you have to get rid of people, what are the effects that you see? Do you feel like it's fairly accurate and helps do the job at deterring and keeping the bad apples out?
I can confirm that polygraph worked magic for us. It's a game changer here. We lost rhinos last year consecutively, like from February to April, I think we lost 6. But as soon as we polygraphed the whole team and a couple of guys failed, they got retrenched. Since last year, April, up to this date that we're talking now, we haven't lost not even a single rhino. So that tells you that, yes, indeed, there were rotten apples. Why all of a sudden it's quiet and for a year? So yes, I understand there are people, those who are against that they will say that, yeah, polygraph, lie detector test, it's not 100% accurate. Yes, they might be right. I'm not saying that it's 100% accurate, but, it sort of like sends a message to say that, okay, if you were not involved into that, don't even try it. Because if you can try it, you might be next. So it worked for us. I can confirm that. And it worked even back there, because what happens is that as soon as these guys are out, then information starts to come from local communities to say that, yeah, but haven't you seen? It's been years, man. He has been doing this for a long time. We should have picked that up. It's just that they're scared to come out while he's still there because they're scared of their life. But as soon as he's out, then people come running to say that, yeah, he was even bragging out here about it.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's pretty strong proof. And like you said, maybe it's not even 100%, but if it's something that's that effective in these types of situations where it's so serious, I mean, you kind of need to use whatever you have at your disposal to protect those animals in the reserve and your team from the corruption. So yeah, it's just really interesting to dive into. This is definitely a tough topic to go into, for myself, and I know for you as well. But, last year, we're kind of getting close to the year date, actually, to when we lost the late Anton Mzimba to some hitmen that took him out at his home related to rhino poaching. And yeah, the film, we almost had this film done and we were getting ready to come and celebrate. And yeah, it's pretty tough. I think the last message I got from Anton was, saying that, hey, World Ranger Day is coming up on July 31st, which I think was a week or two from when he sent this message. And he's like, I wish you were here. We'd be partying and we're going to braai some impalas and have a good time and celebrate the Rangers. And, I was saying, I'm not going to be able to make it, but I'm hoping to come in September to bring the film and share it with you guys. And then, yeah, that's, I think a few days after that is when I heard what happened to him. So I know this is tough to talk about, but you're so close to Anton. You worked with him for so many years, just right under him. He was a mentor, family member. I don't know if you could talk about what happened there and how that loss affected you and kind of the situation and what, you had to step up and kind of take complete leadership of that whole team during this crazy time. So I don't know if you can give us a window into that time, just because I think it really highlights how dangerous this job is and the threats from the rhino poaching syndicates and how much help we really need to make sure that we can stop this from that side of things.
I've known Anton Mzimba for the past 18 years. I've worked with him very, very closely. We shared a lot. I've learned a lot from him. He was that guy whom, when he's got information, when he's got something that he would want to share, he doesn't keep it for himself, but he will share it. So I am who I am today because of the late Anton Mzimba. And I couldn't believe it when when I heard that he's gone. So what happened is these threats, like as I've said, they started after we've lost those couple of guys last year when they failed the polygraph test. The threats were there even way back, but it started to get worse last year after those guys were retrenched, where we even got information, myself and him, to say that, okay, the guys are after you. We went to the subs because it was getting serious. Then we went and opened a case of intimidation, and we were told that, okay, they're going to investigate on that intimidation case. And what followed after, I've just received a message from the subs official to say that, okay, the case has been withdrawn. And by that time, since we received those threats, going home for our time to visit our families, it was a difficult one because we never wanted our families to be in a situation where they're getting shot because they didn't know what's going on. They're just very supporting us on what we're doing, the work that we do, but we never wanted them to see the bad side of it. So sometimes, as when they know that either myself or the late Anton Mzimba is home, then they will gather up and try and visit our families to see if we're there. I remember one day they saw me, I was driving home and I met this car, and a couple of minutes later, I received a call to say that, okay, seems like the guys are going there. They've met you. And I saw them, but I didn't know it was them. Then I was told that you have met with this car on this area and they're coming for you tonight. Then I said, okay, it's fine. Let them come. I'm not going anywhere. But instead, I've moved from home to be somewhere else. And it happened again with the late Anton Mzimba. They did the same, and he had to quickly move everyone out from the house, came back to the Timbavati, because that's where we felt like we're safe rather than out there. And that's the scariest part, because now the kids and our family starts to ask question, what's going on? Why are you always running away? What? And we never wanted them to get involved into such. So when he went home on July for his off time, since we were very much close, we were running this department, the both of us. Since he was away, I was here. So I had plans in place that as soon as he comes back, then this is what I want to have a meeting with him. And we will always communicate when he's home to say that, okay, when are you coming back? And they told me that he's coming back on this date. So it was on the 26th. He was supposed to come back to work on the 27th. On the 26th, late afternoon, that's when I received a call to say that he has been shot. I couldn't believe it. I felt like I was dreaming. I wasn't sure and couldn't even stand up. I had to man up, but it was hard for me. And I couldn't even think properly. I didn't even know who to call to just to confirm that what I had, is it 100% true, or it's just, it sort of like took my mind away to can believe that he's gone. But then it came into mind that the threats that we were getting all along, so this is it. They might have got him. They might have got him. Then I felt helpless because I was like, if I was there, maybe this wouldn't have happened. That's how close we were. So I am broken even today, even though the fight that he was fighting, we were in it together. So I had to man up. I had to step up and saying that they might have won him. They might have got him. But the fight that he was in for, I've got to take it forward. We're not letting them to win this war. If it means coming for me, then so be it. But we're moving forward. They might have taken him, but they didn't take the whole team. So nothing is going to be easy for them. If it means they took him because he was incorruptible, because they wanted to come and operate freely here, then they've got a surprise to come their way. So sad part is that up to this far, nothing has happened. We're not hearing anything. Nobody has been arrested, but the case was opened. And yeah, we're just hoping one day, whoever did this will come into books, and yeah, justice will be done for the late Mzimba. I know I'm on the list. I'm on their list. So they're just waiting for the right moment. They're coming for me. But yes, I'm not scared of that. I'm not scared of them. If they find me, then so be it. But yeah, I'm gonna keep on fighting the fight that I'm doing. And I'm gonna be doing this for the late Mzimba. May his soul rest in peace.
Mm. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Orlat. I know it's been a tough almost year now, and yeah, I just can't imagine in your shoes what you were going through during that time, especially like you said, having to step up and continue to lead the team when yourself, we're struggling and hurting so bad from this, and just very grateful to have you as a friend. And yeah, I'd have so much respect for you and what you're doing and facing all these threats. And we've had many chats about anything we could do to help. And I feel like there's a lot of people out there wanting to support you as any way we can. But ultimately, it's you, and you have to stand up for yourself out there in a lot of these situations. And this isn't an unusual situation. I mean, this happens to rangers not only in your area but around the world, where they get these threats and these types of things happen. And it's really tough, especially when you see the corruption that's happening within other organizations, whether that's law enforcement or government or whoever, that's making it tough, like you said, to bring justice to these people. And I know I definitely want to continue to do work to try and make sure that happens. And hopefully this story just brings more people's attention to it so that we can have justice served in this case. But yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I could still think back to when, I think it was the next morning, I think Matt was trying to call me in the middle of the night, and I had my phone on silent, so I never heard it. And the next morning, our friend Josh, who I was rooming with, he had found out, but he didn't want to wake me up. And so he just stayed up all night waiting and hoping that I would wake up. And then, yeah, told me what happened. And I couldn't believe it either. Just really, really painful time. And it was tough too, because I was so far away here in the States and wanting to be there, and especially for the memorial. And that's kind of going back to that voice message that he sent me, saying, "Hey, I wish you were here on World Ranger Day to celebrate with us." And yeah, sadly, that ended up being his memorial service. And I wonder if you'd be willing to talk a little bit about what that memorial service was like, because it's really beautiful, and we were able to incorporate some of that into the film. And also, who was Anton Mzimba, for people that don't know? What kind of person was he? Why did so many people come to honor him at this memorial and continue to mourn his loss?
The memorial service, it was out of this world, I must say, and all thanks to Timbavati for organizing that, and everybody who came to the memorial. And yeah, the late Anton Mzimba, he was one of that person who touched almost most of the people's life. He was that person who is there when you need him. Super friendly and very sharing, very talkative, very caring. And wherever he is, he was that kind of a humble guy, and he interacts with people, and he wanted to share as much as he can. And I've never, for the rest of his life that we've been together, I've never seen Anton being angry at somebody else, and he was always happy. He loved almost everyone, including his enemies. He knew that he had enemies, but he never even showed any bad sign or bad side of him to those. We will try and call them and show them a way, try and put them on a straight line. So a lot of people, the late Anton Mzimba, touched their lives, and I wasn't surprised to see that memorial service, to have so many people the way we were on that day. That showed how Anton was. And I think with the memorial service that was done, I think it perfectly suited him well. So all thanks to whoever organized what happened that day and whoever came to participate. And yeah, it's a huge loss, for not only for Timbavati, but for the whole world, I must say. Losing Anton, yeah, it's something else. We know we all gonna die, but not in that way. We never expected that. We never expected him to live the way he left us. But yeah, what else can we do? we're just hoping that the justice system maybe will do justice for us here. We just keep hoping for the best. We don't have to lose hope, even though we can see that it's taking long, but we've got to keep on hoping that one day things are going to happen.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, like you were saying, he's just one of the most beautiful people I've ever met in terms of so friendly and humble, and at the same time, just such a great leader. And he was willing to put himself on the line for this work because he believed in it so much and was so passionate about it. So not only was he caring and generous and a warm person, but he was willing to stand his ground and fight for what he believed in, which is really, really powerful combination. And it's such a tragedy that we had to lose him this way. But I think through all of the people he's touched over the years, and hopefully, I mean, I feel like the main mission of this film now for me is to use his story to inspire people to follow their passion and to do their work and to stand up for what they believe in, because there's not too many people like Anton out there, and we need more of them doing good in the world, whether that's conservation or something else that's benefiting the world in a beautiful way. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. I know it's not easy to remember these things, but I think Anton will be with us for the rest of our lives for sure.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for coming into our lives. If it wasn't for you and Matt, I don't know where we would have been. I don't know if Anton would have been known worldwide by now, but because of your presence in our life, and now Timbavati and the rest of the Rangers team, we are privileged and we feel honored to have somebody like you who stood up and saying that, okay, let us share the journey of the Rangers, how difficult this work is and what kind of a job they're doing and how important it is. And, risking our lives like how we do it, it's not a child's play, but yes, we're doing it because we know that we've got people, those who are looking after us. Your support means so much to us. And yes, whatever it is, he's smiling. He is smiling, looking back at what he has done and what you guys did to him. And he just can't talk, but I'm sure he's thanking you like million times for what you've done, for being there for him, and getting to know him much. And he was that open guy who will, whenever you want to know something, then he will just come out and talk. He will share whatever you want, and he is still sharing. He is looking after us. The reason why we haven't lost any rhino up to this far is because he's still with us. He's still guiding us, and we believe in him because the fight that he was fighting is the fight that we're fighting. So, yes, I trust he is smiling wherever he is, looking back at what we're doing, because that's what he would have loved to do.
Yeah, for sure. And thank you, Orlat. I mean, I think, Anton and you and your whole team and Rangers just in general, just for me, are so inspiring, the work you're doing, and to be able to do the little that I can to help share that story is, yeah, just an honor to be able to highlight the work you're doing, because it's a lot more difficult than what I'm doing. I'm just sharing those stories with people. So yeah, you guys inspire me, and that's why I've fought so long to make this as good of a film and project, and hopefully we can raise more awareness and support for rangers, at the Timbavati and Africa and beyond, because there's so many men and women doing this around the world to protect our wildlife and planet for all of us to benefit from in different ways. So I feel like we're getting near the end now, but why do you do this every day? Why do you continue to do this even in the face of loss and threats and the dangers? What keeps you motivated and moving every day?
Simple, John. The reason why I keep on doing this every day, it's because I'm doing what I love. From an early age, I think I've fallen in love with nature. Then I got to understand that without this, I wouldn't be who I am today. So the love that I have for nature, it's out of this world, regardless of the threats that I'm facing every day. But my whole heart is in conservation, is on wildlife, and nothing is going to shake me up from that. No, not even a human being. No, no threats is gonna push me far away from doing what I'm doing because I'm doing what I love. I've dedicated my life, into doing this. So yeah, whatever comes, I'm ready for it. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not getting shaken. So this is what I love. This is me. This is what I'm living to do. So yes, and I'm gonna keep on doing it. Come what threats or whatever may, I'm not going anywhere.
Mm. That's super powerful. And maybe this is kind of our final question. What advice do you give to other people that are maybe looking at becoming a ranger or getting into conservation or just following their passion? Because, from what you just said, there's not too many people that stick it out or find their passion and fight for it and dedicate their lives to it. And it's a really beautiful way to live. So what advice do you have maybe for the youth, the young people coming up into this space to go forward?
The advice that I can give is that being a field ranger is one of the most exciting job where you tend to learn every day, tend to experience new stuff every day. So you learn nonstop and you seeing stuff that is super exciting every day and you get to interact with animals every day. Then what you might have heard about the danger of being a wildlife. When you're in here, then you can totally see a different side of it. So being a field ranger is not like you are desperate or of work or you not educated and stuff. No, there is a lot to learn on when being a field ranger. So you just have to be there. It's super exciting to be a field ranger. I can tell you, as long as you're not money driven, then you're gonna love this work. And as long as you're money driven, then you're gonna have a future when doing this work. So people they shouldn't listen to what others are saying, but follow their dreams. Look at somebody else. If someone else is doing it, then it means you can do it. If I've done it for 14 years, then it means you can do it. Even more than that. So you just have to be passionate. You just have to be dedicated. You just have to have that willingness. You just have to fall in love with nature. And once you have that, then you are unstoppable. Don't get tempted so easily. Where there is money, there is danger. So not even a single work that you can do that doesn't have negative impact on your life. Same as the ranger. You can be in an army. Your life is at risk. You work at a bank, your life is at risk. You work at the hospital, your life. So wherever you are, your life is always going to be at risk. So being in here, you're even more safer than being out there because animals doesn't think like human beings. They can't be your enemies. So you're living a much healthier life in here than being out there. So yes, I will say people should come and experience what we've experienced. Yes, difficulties are going to be there, challenges are going to be there, like they are everywhere. But most of the time, you're living your best life in here.
Yeah, beautiful words, Orlat. And yeah, I just want to thank you again for not only taking the time to do this podcast, but yeah, for all of the work you've been doing all these years. I just feel like you're inspirational human, and every time I'm with you, I just honored to know that you're a friend and to learn from you and your experience and to see the results and the fruits of the work that you and your team are doing there at Timbavati. It's been a really beautiful 5 years working on this project, and I'm sure even once Rhino Man is done and these movies are finished, still hope to be connected closely with you and the team and the Kruger area. It's been a beautiful chapter in my life and hope it continues. So thank you so much, Orlat, for taking the time. Really, really appreciate it.
No, thanks a lot, but yeah, really appreciate you coming into our lives. You really made a huge difference. Let me assure you that you have changed so many's life. The Rangers are looking up for you and what you have done for them. It's super exceptional, incredible. You are such a human being. I wouldn't differentiate you with Anton because that's how he was. He was there for people. That's what you are. You are there for people. You're not just there for yourself. So Thank you both for being here for us, and we really appreciate it. And we hope to continue, like as you've said, the friendship that we have started. It doesn't stop here, it doesn't end here, but we still have a long way to go. We need you as much as you do. So together we going far. And yes, I can't thank you enough for the job that you have done for us, for the Rangers in particular, worldwide. We are who we are today because of you, and we're super proud of what you have done for us.
Thanks, Orlat. That means a lot, brother. And yeah, I mean, I think by the time this podcast episode comes out, the film will be completely finished, and we're going to be just starting to take this out into the world and roll it out. So yeah, for everyone listening, we're not exactly sure how it's all going to roll out. It depends on a lot of factors, but it's definitely coming soon, and it's finally done, and we're ready to share that with the world and inspire people to learn more about Rangers and support them, and yeah, just make this a better world for everyone. So thank you again, Orlat. It's been an honor, and looking forward to seeing you soon.
No, thanks a lot, and yes, keep well.
Thank you for listening to the RHINO Man podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and you're excited to see the film succeed, please subscribe and review our podcast on Spotify and iTunes. Then follow us on Instagram and Facebook at RHINO Man the Movie. More details about RHINO Man, the social impact campaign, and future screenings are at rhinomanthemovie.org. To learn more about the Global Conservation Corps and their work, visit globalconservationcorps.org. Sign up for the newsletter and follow GCC on all of the social platforms. If you like this podcast, make sure to subscribe and catch up on GCC's Voices of Nature podcast, where Bob Ludke interviews a wide range of people who've dedicated their lives to making a difference in conservation. A special thanks goes out to Simone Wilson for the music for this podcast. He's the brilliant composer for RHINO Man the Movie. Learn more about his work at simonewilsonmusic.com. Until next time, I'm John Jerko, and this is the RHINO Man podcast.